I thought he had one more video out. Besides, oh.
This video is sponsored by Skillshare, and also there are some spoilers for Breaking Bad and Succession, and also the original Star Wars. Hey guy, welcome back to my Webkins account. As always, this video is entirely inspired by one Curtis Connor tweet. If you go on YouTube and search for Best Acting Compilation, what you'll probably see is a lot of videos with millions of views that look and sound kind of like this.
Get lazy, I make shit ugly, hate you!
Yes, 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 yes! While most of these scenes are incredible, I think it's kind of silly that we tend to view yelling loudly or crying on camera
that every day.
to be the epitome of a performance. Maybe it's just that anger and sadness are the two most relatable human emotions, or maybe it's cathartic when you have some amount of pent-up frustration to see an actor go absolutely apeshit on a mirror. But there are so many other types of acting that are just as important as the climactic rage outbursts that tend to fly under the radar. One of the biggest ones is just reacting. What are you doing while other people are talking? Are you visibly affected by what they're saying, or are you just waiting for your turn to talk again? It doesn't matter that you nailed all your lines if you just stand there with a blank expression while everyone else is giving theirs. Not only are you gonna ruin whatever shot you happen to be in, but you just made it that much harder for your scene partner to focus on what they're saying. Subtle reaction shots can be just as powerful or devastating as the line that they're reacting to. That's what adds any meaning to those words. When you think about it, it doesn't really matter what someone says in a scene if the person they're saying it to doesn't give a shit. The gravity of words is the impact they have, not necessarily just the words themselves. If something is meant to be a big reveal, but the other person doesn't seem at all shocked, then kind of ruined the surprise, didn't it? I think one reason a show like Succession is so captivating to me is because of how into it every actor is, no matter who's talking. In fact, the show is purposely shot in a way so the actors never know for certain when they might be in frame, so they need to be constantly invested. Some of the cameramen are given free reign to move around the room and zoom in on whoever they want. This makes it so even when only a couple people in a scene are talking, you still know how everyone else feels because you can see it on their face. It's funny, in a lot of ways this is a show about words. It's about clever insults and very deliberate dialogue. Some of the best lines I've ever heard.
Breaking Bad even worth watching. Breaking Bad is...
You can't make a omelet without breaking some Greggs.
But in spite of that, a lot of the most compelling moments are entirely nonverbal. Whether it's Shiv silently seething at the end of season 3, Logan giving the most subtle smirk at the end of season 2, or the many looks on Kendall's face as he goes through an absolute roller coaster of
You're gonna be disappointed if you think it's a crime
highs
thriller
and
or
lows
whatever.
of his drug addiction, all while grappling with the guilt he feels for doing something awful at the end of season 1. And look, this is all just my opinion. I'm not a trained actor by any means. The most acting I do is in the little skits that I put in my videos. But for me, it is always so much harder to do a reaction shot than it is to give a line. Because when I'm talking, I'm actively doing something. I have words to say.
So you're telling me he wouldn't be a good Twitch
streamer? I can focus on what I'm saying and how to say them. But if I have to just like give a surprised look or look like I'm sad about something that's happening out of frame, it just doesn't come naturally at all. I have to do it 100 times before I can narrow it down to one not terrible take. So because of my own shortcomings, I'm often just as impressed when people give a really good facial expression in a scene as I am, when someone gives like a really cool monologue. Going back to what I talked about in the beginning, rage is something that can be even more interesting when the actor's trying to hold it back, not necessarily just explode on everyone. Jack Nicholson in The Shining, before he goes sicko mode on his whole family, makes it very clear without even saying a word that he is actively snapping. This face is terrifying. He doesn't have to say anything here. He doesn't have to be charging you with an axe. I am scared looking at this. And all he's doing is making a face. That's incredible. Nonverbal acting goes hand in hand with physical acting. And for a really long time, I kind of rolled my eyes at the idea of physical comedy because when I thought about it, I just thought about Lele Pons falling down. And technically, yes, that counts, but there's so much more to physicality. The way your character walks, that's a choice. Whether it's Michael Cera embodying an entire personality with this defeated slouch, or it's kind of weird, the boss from Emily in Paris. I know, it's a terrible show, but I am fascinated by this actress's choice to always walk around with like T-Rex arms. And then it hit me. Powerful people are always pointing at stuff. Rachel, I love your haircut.
Oh my God, that's why Kim Jong-un was pointing.
Can't you read the sign? And so, I guess it's more convenient to keep your hands up here. always ready to point. Okay, a better example of physicality that I love. Kieran Culkin as Roman Roy. There's a scene where he accidentally sends a dick pic to his father during a work meeting. His acting in the rest of this episode is so beautiful. Not because of anything he says. Honestly, I don't remember a single word of dialogue from this, but I will always remember the way he shrinks into his chair, the way his face contorts and his eyes well up. You can see him actively trying to escape his body. Like maybe if he curls up enough, his body will fold into itself and disappear, but he can't. He's stuck. And all of the smugness and arrogance that has built up for him over the course of the season is whisked away in a matter of seconds. Depending on what role you have, physicality could also be your ability to dance or do action sequences. Obviously not the ones with stunt doubles, the ones where they see your face, so you gotta do it yourself. Not every actor is good at everything, and you can't just sub someone in for one scene, so it's no small feat when someone is able to check every box. I think there's a lot of roles you can look at through this lens and maybe view differently. Like, it's easy to say that Hayden Christensen pooped the bed in the Star Wars prequels because of how robotically all of his lines were delivered. But in his defense, I think a lot of that had more to do with George Lucas's inability to write regular human dialogue.
The dialogue was a little bit difficult. I remember there was one line that I just begged him to take out of the screenplay, and he finally did.
I don't really
My
remember much
line
about Black Swan.
But we can't turn back. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aquilai or Soest, and what there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault. And I thought, who talks like this, George?
A lot of Hayden's physical acting was really good. The choreographed fights,
Star Wars.
Some of his facial expressions, where you could really see on his face the internal conflict that he's dealing with. And you maybe even start to feel some empathy. The problem is, then he goes on the whole sand rant and it kind of kills the vibe. But did he write that? No, George wrote that. And George managed to make Natalie Portman look like a bad actress, and she won an Oscar like 5 years after this movie, so I don't think that's on her.
Suddenly I'm afraid.
A similar character, but on the opposite end of the spectrum for me, is Tobey Maguire. Like probably 100 million other people, I recently went back and rewatched the Sam Raimi trilogy, and I had always thought Tobey was really good in these movies. But watching it now, I realize, he's really good at playing Peter Parker. He's not very good at playing Spider-Man. The dude pulls off the sad, lonely nerd character like nobody's business. But when he's not crying or actively becoming a meme, he kind of always talks the same. He always talks really quietly for some reason.
Look at little Goblin Jr.
I'm gonna avenge Uncle Ben.
I've never seen those either.
Eric Foreman. Not to beat a dead horse, because obviously a ton of people have talked about why Spider-Man 3 was a disappointment, but in order for a trilogy like this to work, there needs to be more growth exhibited from the main character. And I just don't know if Tobey as an actor was capable of doing that. Last Star Wars example, I promise. But to me, the gold standard in this will always be Mark Hamill. You ever go back and watch the very first Star Wars? Luke Skywalker is a little bitch in this movie.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
And then a couple years later, he's gone through some transformative experiences. And he's a total badass. He's cool as hell. If he was the same stinky little goofball the whole time, it would have ruined the series. Imagine if instead of showing up to fight Emperor Palpatine with a shiny new robot hand and a shit ton of confidence, he just grew out his hair a little bit and moped in the corner. I'll take down the Empire when you fix this damn door! In short, a lot of actors are good at some things, but very few are versatile enough to be good at everything. And that brings me to Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston has played two of my favorite characters in two of my favorite shows, won awards doing both, and they could not be more different. Having watched Malcolm in the Middle 100 times, I always thought that I wouldn't be able to take Breaking Bad seriously because I would only be able to see Hal. Hal is a total pushover. He's scared of everything, he gets really fixated on random obsessions, and in spite of his good intentions, he always tends to make situations worse. But more than anything else, he just loves his family, especially his wife, and it's one of the most wholesome and endearing characters on TV.
Lois, that boy needs a father figure, and I really think it should be me.
Walter White is not. Bryan's physical comedy is so good in Malcolm in the Middle, and he has some signature mannerisms that every once in a while
There's this one thing I wonder if he's going to point out. One thing that he always did was Walter White always went like this.
the most part, these two characters are so different that it doesn't even seem like the same actor. Through an unfortunate series of dominoes, Walter transforms into essentially the main villain of the show. But it's such a slow process that it doesn't feel unnatural. From the beginning, you can see the seeds planted, you can see some of that anger in his eyes, and as his situation gets worse and he does his best to survive it, in order to avoid the danger,
I didn't know there
to
was a Breaking
become
Bad
the
movie.
danger. Walter and the audience, to an extent, can rationalize just about every fucked up thing he does. But there will come a point where you suddenly realize, yeah, I'm not rooting for this guy
El
anymore.
Camino, yeah.
He's done way too much. He's the BoJack Horseman of drug dealers. A happy ending is possible, but does this guy even deserve it? And that slow, organic shift is really impressive to watch, not just from the writers, but from Bryan Cranston as well. Aside from all the obvious big moments throughout the show, one of my favorite scenes early on was between him and Gretchen, a character played by Jessica Heck. Up until this point, she'd only been in 2 other episodes. She was barely established on screen, and all we really knew was this vague history between her and Walt, which makes it all that more impressive, the amount of tension they have in this scene. It's like we've been watching them go at it for years, but they've only been on screen together for like 10 minutes up until this point. It's incredible.
I feel so sorry for you, Walt.
Fuck you.
You ever watch a performance so good that all you can do is laugh? Because your body doesn't know how else to express how that made you feel, so you just let out an involuntary chuckle. This show
Why didn't
had
he
so
just
many
not
moments
quit
of
that
for me,
company,
from
and then
Bryan
he would have been a
Cranston,
bajillionaire.
Aaron Paul, Bill Allen as scientist. And it's all a good example of how acting, writing, and directing all go hand in hand. There are directors who have made great actors look bad. There's writing that's so clever that just about anyone who delivers the line is going to
His
seem like a
pride
genius.
true.
And there's some actors who are so good in a
It
role
was
that
all
it
about
forces
his
the
pride.
showrunner to reconsider their entire plan. Jesse Pinkman was supposed to die in season 1, but then Vince Gilligan saw how well Aaron and Brian worked together, and he was like, you know what?
like Harry Potter.
Maybe not. And it's a good thing they didn't do that, because by the end of the show, are you really rooting for anyone besides Jesse? All right, so I guess the last topic I want to touch on is this ongoing debate about the validity of method acting.
I really
Essentially,
wanted Jesse
method
to run
acting
away
is
with
when
Jane.
someone stays in character all the time because they think it'll make them act better. And I don't have too
And
much of a
run.
concrete feeling about this either way. I think
But-
generally speaking, whatever works, you know.
Oh my
just do
god,
the
when
best
she was
job
like,
you
okay,
can. But
this
you hear
is the
stories
last
about
time,
actors
we'll
who
just
are
use it
playing
all,
villains.
and then
So they just
I
treat
literally,
everyone
I was like,
shit all the
no,
time,
when she
because
said
that's
that.
what my character would do. And that's where it's like, okay, maybe you're just using this as an excuse to be a
She
dick.
didn't want to
I always
waste
say
it or
about people who
something.
do method acting. You only ever see people doing the method when they're playing an asshole.
Maybe instead you could do what everyone else does and just do your job and then go
Yeah,
home
just
and
act.
be normal.
True.
I think what it comes down to for me is whether or not the performance you're giving warrants whatever nonsense you're pulling on set. Like, in my opinion, Jeremy Strong is giving the performance of a lifetime as Kendall Roy. But as an actor, he is very much an anomaly on that set with the way he goes through his process. He's notoriously not very fun to be around. He takes everything way too seriously. And there are other incredible actors on set who are able to access a similar level of performance without being a wet blanket. But ultimately, he never seems to cross a line. And if that's what it takes for
Hey,
him
it's
to
like the
pull this
guy from
off,
The
then
Boys.
just
He
let the
punched some
results
dude
speak
in
for themselves.
Spain.
But then you have other examples of method acting, like
Homelander
Jared
guy.
Leto as the Joker, doing insane things to his coworkers because, sorry, Jared's not here right now. This is how the Joker would act.
Did you send used condoms to?
Oh, everybody.
Yeah, he sent used condoms, sticky Playboy magazines.
I can't even begin to tell you the weird things I got.
I mean, the Joker is somebody who doesn't really respect things like personal space or boundaries.
So he's going
Yeah, but he
around
wouldn't send
actively
condoms.
being a nuisance to everyone. And to make it worse, his performance wasn't even that good. I don't know if this was worth being an asshole for 4 months, dude. One thing you'll hear a lot about method actors is the people they worked with.
I'm
in the
the
movie
Joker,
saying,
baby.
Oh, I never met that guy. I only met the character he was playing. It's like, that's cool, I guess. I admire the commitment. But it's one of those things that better work, otherwise the ends do not justify the means. Anyway, as is the case in all of my stream of consciousness video essays, I don't really know how to end this. So let's do a lightning round. Reservation Dogs, one of my favorite new shows. There's such a talented cast, but Sarah Podemski is probably the highlight for me, as well as Mose and Miko, who are so goddamn funny every time they're on screen. Betsy Brandt is Marie. Holy shit, she nails this character. The overly nosy extended family member who has to know everything and also can't keep a secret. The fact that most people have probably met someone exactly like this is what makes it so.
I hate
But if
her.
I were to narrow down
I
my
really
Mount
liked
Rushmore
every
of acting
character.
to just one person, it wouldn't be Bryan Cranston or Meryl Streep or Morgan Freeman or Marlon Brando or Adam Driver or the guy who plays Mayhem in the Allstate commercials. It would be him.
Kevin, your dog just died.
You want to talk about subtlety? You
What
want
is
to
that,
talk
an
about some non-verbal
Abercrombie
acting? That man
commercial
did not even have
photo
to say
shoot?
a word. He barely had to move his face muscles. And yet you could feel the sadness through the screen. I kind of feel like my dog just died. That's sad. I'm crying. Anyway, I think he deserves it. I'm going to be giving him my Streamy Award because I feel like he's not getting enough appreciation for this, and I'm getting too much. I've only posted one video this year, and it's about Christmas movies, so I don't deserve this. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about that. If you like this video and you want to support my channel, stick around while I tell you about today's sponsor. If you're anything like me, there's probably something you've been meaning to learn your entire life, but you keep putting it off because you don't know where to start. And that's where Skillshare comes in. There are two things I am committed to learning in 2022. I want to learn how to play the bass, and I want to be able to go on Ableton without getting overwhelmed every time. In theory, I know how it should work. It's just, there's so many buttons. Skillshare is full of in-depth lessons to discover on so many different topics, whether it's something you've been doing for a long time and you want to take it to the next level, or it's something you're just starting out and you want some guidance on where to begin. They're completely ad-free, so you can stay focused on what you're trying to learn. And new classes are added every single week in addition to the thousands they already have. Classes about photography, video editing, animation, web design, and yes, even acting. You guys think Marilyn Monroe became an acting legend all on her own? No.
What? I'm just watching it because I'm trying to click his link. Hey, first 1,000 people to use the link get a 1-month free trial. Here you go.